America's first mountain man, John Colter. Welcome to Native Legends and History Stories, where we bring America's most extraordinary frontier tales to life. Subscribe now to Journey Through History's Untold Adventures. If God would forgive me this time and let me off, I will leave this country tomorrow, and be damned if I ever come into it again. These desperate words echoed through the wilderness, as John Colter, blood streaming down his naked body, ran for his life from hundreds of Blackfeet warriors. But what drove this legendary mountain man to such extremes? How did a humble farmer's son become one of America's most daring explorers? Born in 1774 near Stewart's Draft, Virginia, to Irish sharecroppers, John Colter's story began far from the perilous frontiers he would one day conquer. Standing 5'10", with a muscular frame hardened by years of farm work, young Colter showed early signs of the remarkable strength and endurance that would later save his life. When his family moved to Kentucky in the 1780s seeking cheaper land, none could have predicted that this simple relocation would set him on a path to becoming America's first mountain man. In the rugged Kentucky wilderness, Colter honed his skills as a woodsman, developing an almost supernatural ability to track game and navigate untamed territories. Rumors spread that he rode as a ranger under the legendary frontiersman, Simon Kenton, though few records survive from these early years. What's known is that by 1803, Colter had become such an accomplished outdoorsman that he caught the attention of Meriwether Lewis himself. August 1803 marked a turning point when Colter, alongside George Shannon and Patrick Gass, approached Captain Lewis near Pittsburgh. The Corps of Discovery was preparing for their historic expedition, and Colter's reputation as a skilled hunter preceded him. As the Corps settled for winter at Riviera du Bois, near the Missouri River's mouth, Colter's true character began to emerge, both his exceptional abilities and his fierce independence. While Lewis and Clark were away in St. Louis gathering supplies, Colter's rebellious spirits surfaced. In a dramatic confrontation, under Sergeant John Ordway's command, Colter, fueled by whiskey and defiance, loaded his gun with the intention to shoot his superior officer. This act of insubordination earned him 10 days of punishment, yet remarkably it didn't end his journey. After apologizing, Colter not only rejoined the expedition, but went on to become one of its most valuable members. As the Corps pushed westward, Colter's natural talents shone through. His uncanny ability to track game, scout territories, and navigate treacherous terrain made him indispensable to William Clark. While others fell ill crossing the brutal Bitterroot Mountains in 1805, Colter remained tireless, venturing alone into unknown territories to hunt and scout paths forward. The Pacific Ocean beckoned, but for Colter, this was just the beginning of an extraordinary journey that would test the very limits of human endurance. Deep in the wilderness, far ahead of the main party, Colter found himself face to face with 3 warriors of the Tushapo Flathead tribe. The tension in the air was palpable as the Indians, mounted on magnificent stallions, immediately reached for their bows and arrows. In that critical moment, Colter made a bold decision that showcased both his courage and diplomatic instinct. He deliberately laid down his rifle and walked toward the warriors, arms raised in a gesture of peace. The warriors, impressed by this display of trust, lowered their weapons. Though no common language existed between them, Colter engaged in an intricate dance of hand signals and gestures, the universal sign language of the American frontier. Through these silent conversations, he learned of the Flatheads' prosperity, discovering that each warrior owned between 20 and 100 horses, a sign of their nation's wealth and power. What began as a potentially deadly confrontation transformed into a crucial alliance. After sharing food and exchanging gifts, Colter's diplomatic success bore fruit. One of the young Flathead warriors agreed to guide the expedition through their territory, providing safe passage through the treacherous mountain paths. This success earned Colter a place among the select few chosen to push westward to the Pacific Ocean. He ventured along the sea north of the Columbia River into what would later become Washington State, mapping unknown territories and expanding the expedition's scope beyond its original boundaries. By July 18, Colter joined an elite group of 9 men, personally selected by Captain Meriwether Lewis for a crucial mission. They embarked on a challenging 40-day trek eastward, from Traveler's Rest to the Missouri River, aiming to reach the Yellowstone's mouth and rendezvous with Captain Clark's party. However, this journey would prove far from peaceful. The party faced repeated confrontations with the Minnetonka Blackfoot Indians, culminating in a fateful incident on July 27. When Captain Lewis caught a Blackfoot warrior attempting to steal a horse, the situation erupted in violence. The captain's shot that killed the thief would have far-reaching consequences, igniting a fierce enmity between the Blackfeet and white settlers that would haunt the region for years to come, and would later nearly cost Colter his life. After countless miles and adventures, the expedition finally returned to the Mandan villages in present-day North Dakota. Their destiny presented Colter with a new opportunity. Two seasoned frontiersmen, Forrest Hancock and Joseph Dixon, were preparing to venture into the upper Missouri Territory in search of valuable furs. Recognizing Colter's unparalleled knowledge of the region, they sought his expertise. On August 13, 1806, Captains Lewis and Clark made an unprecedented decision. They granted Colter an early honorable discharge, allowing him to guide Hancock and Dixon back into the wilderness he had helped chart. As recorded in Sergeant Ordway's journal, the officers equipped Colter generously with powder, lead and various supplies for what was planned as a 2-year trapping expedition. On Sunday, August 17, Colter set off with his new companions in their modest canoe, embarking on what would become an even more extraordinary chapter of his frontier saga. Armed with 20 beaver traps, enough ammunition to last 2 years, and an arsenal of expedition-gifted tools, knives, ropes, hatchets, and various utensils, Colter and his companions, Hancock and Dixon, ventured deep into the uncharted wilderness. Their initial path led them to the treacherous Three Forks region of the lower Missouri, where they established a winter camp in the shelter of Clark's Fork Canyon. However, the looming presence of the Blackfeet, who maintained iron control over the surrounding territory, forced the trappers to abandon their original plans and seek safer hunting grounds along the Yellowstone River. The Yellowstone, though, proved to be an unforgiving mistress. Its narrow channels churned with dangerous rapids, and game proved frustratingly scarce along its banks. The harsh conditions tested not only their survival skills but also their unity as a group. After just 2 months in the upper Missouri region, the partnership dissolved. Colter, ever the restless explorer, grew weary of hiding in the canyon's shadows. His adventurous spirit drove him to strike out alone, ascending through the towering walls into what would later be known as the Sunlight Basin of Wyoming. Throughout the early spring months, Colter ranged further south, establishing profitable trading relationships with both the Crow and Shoshone tribes. His solitary existence came to an unexpected turn in early summer 1807, when his canoe emerged from the mouth of the Platte River into the path of 2 kilometers. At their helm was Manuel Leza, an ambitious entrepreneur who would reshape Colter's path once again over their exchange of information. Leza revealed himself as a co-founder of the Missouri Trading Company, fresh on the heels of Lewis and Clark's groundbreaking Expedition Leases Company. Sought to capitalize on the newly explored Louisiana Territory by establishing trading posts in the fur-rich upper Missouri. His expedition already included familiar faces: George Droulard, John Potts and Peter Weiser, all veterans of the Corps of Discovery. Recognizing the invaluable nature of Colter's intimate knowledge of the territory, Leza made him an offer he couldn't refuse: a position with the trading company, and another chance to explore the wilderness he'd come to love. This new chapter in Colter's life began with the construction of Fort Raymond, also known as Leza's Fort, at the strategic confluence of the Yellowstone and Bighorn Rivers. By October 8, 1807, Leza had devised a bold plan to announce his trading post to the native tribes of the region. He selected 4 men for this crucial mission: the young mountain man Edward Rose, veterans Weiser and Droulard, and Colter himself. Colter's journey was a testament to human endurance. Traversing the winter landscape on snowshoes, he carried a crushing load, a minimum 30-pound pack, his trusty knife, a tomahawk, a powder horn, and a heavy rifle. His path took him up Pryor's Fork into Wyoming, south through the forbidding Pryor Mountains, then westward along the Shoshone River, then colorfully known as the Stinking Water River. During these solitary wanderings, Colter and Droulard made a remarkable discovery. A mysterious landscape, dotted with geysers and bubbling springs, just east of the Rocky Mountains. Their vivid descriptions of this otherworldly terrain earned it a fitting nickname, Colter's Hell. The exact details of Colter's winter route through 1807 to 1808 remain shrouded in mystery, with resources providing only glimpses of his journey. While Captain William Clark would later attempt to document Colter's path in his 1814 map of the West, the topographical errors in his work diverged significantly from the actual landscape, leaving future generations to piece together the true extent of Colter's remarkable explorations. Historical records piece together Colter's daring journey south, along the towering Absaroka mountain range. With each step he pushed deeper into unknown territory, eventually crossing the Continental Divide near Union Pass, in the northern Wind River Range. His exploration led him through the pristine valleys of Jackson Hole, and into the expansive Teton Basin. Of this remarkable journey, only one tangible piece of evidence remains. A head-shaped stone, discovered by chance in 1933 by farmer William Beard, bearing the simple inscription, John Colter, 1808. Undaunted by the harsh terrain, Colter pressed onward, conquering Conant Pass, before turning north toward the mysterious expanse of Yellowstone Lake. As early spring breathed new life into the landscape, he made his way back across the northern reaches of the Absaroka Mountains, finally returning to Fort Raymond in the warming days of March, or April 18, 1808. Shortly after his return, he organized another expedition, leading a group of trappers up the Yellowstone toward the Three Forks of the Missouri. During this venture, an unexpected opportunity arose. Colter's diplomatic skills came into play as he successfully negotiated with local tribes, ultimately leading an impressive convoy of 800 Crow and Flathead Indians back to Fort Raymond for a major trading operation involving horses and furs. The return journey, however, would prove to be one of Colter's most harrowing experiences. The large trading party found itself ambushed by an overwhelming force of approximately 15 Blackfeet warriors. In the chaos that ensued, Colter took a wound to his leg. Whether from an arrow or bullet remains disputed. Yet even injured, he continued fighting with remarkable tenacity, maintaining steady fire from his makeshift shelter in a dense thicket of brush. Through the combined efforts of the Crow and Flathead warriors, they eventually managed to drive back the Blackfeet assault. Back at Fort Raymond, while recovering from his wounds, Colter witnessed more violence unfold. As Manuel Lizette prepared to transport the season's fur harvest back to St. Louis, tension erupted when Edward Rose launched an attack on their expedition's leader. John Potts, Colter's friend, attempted to intervene, but paid a heavy price, suffering a severe beating for his efforts. By spring 1809, both Colter and Potts had recovered from their respective injuries. Despite their recent brushes with death, the two men formed a partnership, determined to return to the Three Forks area for beaver trapping, well aware of the Blackfeet threat. They adapted their strategy, sleeping during daylight hours and setting their traps under the cover of darkness, retrieving them at first light. Fate, however, had other plans on what seemed like a routine morning check of their traps. About 6 miles from Jefferson's Fork of the Missouri, they found themselves in a situation that would become legendary. As they paddled their canoe upstream, in the early morning light, an ominous sound reached their ears. A thunderous noise like the trampling of many feet. The high steep banks on either side of the river blocked their view, leaving them blind to the danger that awaited. As recorded by British naturalist John Bradbury, who later documented Colter's own account, this moment would mark the beginning of one of the most extraordinary survival stories in frontier history. Colter's instincts screamed danger, Indians. He warned Potts, urging immediate retreat, but it was too late. Within moments, the riverbanks erupted with 500 to 600 Blackfoot warriors, materializing from both sides, gesturing forcefully for them to come ashore. With no choice, Colter steered the canoe toward the bank. The moment they touched land, a warrior lunged for Potts's rifle. Colter, displaying his legendary strength, wrestled it back and returned it to his companion, who remained in the canoe. Potts, seizing his chance, pushed away from shore. The momentary hope of escape was shattered by an arrow's whistle. "Colter, I'm wounded," Potts cried out in a fatal act of defiance. He raised his rifle and shot one of the warriors dead. The response was devastating. A storm of arrows darkened the sky, piercing Potts so thoroughly that, as Colter would later describe, his friend's body was made a riddle of. The warriors seized Colter, stripping him of every piece of clothing, leaving him naked and vulnerable, as they debated his manner of death. Here Colter's experience among the Crow Indians proved invaluable. Understanding enough Blackfoot language and tribal customs, he devised a cunning plan. Though known among fellow hunters as an exceptionally swift runner, he declared himself a poor runner, playing on the warriors' love of sport and spectacle. A chief, intrigued by this claim, led Colter onto the prairie, marking off a distance of 300 to 400 yards. With a war whoop that shattered the morning calm, the chase began. Colter ran as never before, his bare feet pounding across the 6-mile expanse of prairie, every step in agony as they met the merciless, prickly pear cactus that carpeted the ground. His exertion was so intense that blood began streaming from his nose, painting his naked body crimson as he flew across the plain. With a mile left to the river, the sound he dreaded most reached his ears. Footsteps closing in behind him. Every heartbeat brought the expected sensation of a spear plunging into his back in a desperate gambit. Colter suddenly stopped, whirling around with arms spread wide. The pursuing warrior, caught off guard by this unexpected move and Colter's blood-covered appearance, attempted to halt his charge. Exhausted from the chase, he stumbled while trying to throw his spear. The weapon stuck in the ground, its shaft splintering in the warrior's hand. In one fluid motion, Colter snatched up the spearhead, driving it into his pursuer before resuming his desperate flight. Through waves of exhaustion and near-fainting spells, Colter pushed on, finally reaching a stand of cottonwood trees along the river's edge. Without hesitation, he plunged into the cold waters. Providence smiled upon him. Just downstream, a maze of fallen logs had created a natural raft against a small island diving beneath the surface. Colter fought his way under the timber. After several desperate attempts, he found a space to raise his head above water, among the tree trunks. Concealed by layers of smaller branches, barely hidden, he heard the warriors reach the riverbank. Their war cries of frustration echoed across the water, sounding to Colter's ears like the shrieks of demons. As he lay there fighting for silent breath, the legendary mountain man had no way of knowing that this extraordinary escape would become one of the most celebrated survival stories of the American frontier. Colter lay hidden beneath the raft until nightfall, his heart pounding with each sound that might signal the warrior's return. When silence finally settled over the river, he slipped into the dark waters, swimming downstream until he felt safe enough to emerge. His ordeal, however, was far from over. The wilderness that had been his home for years now became his greatest challenge. Naked beneath the scorching sun, every step was agony, as thorns from the prickly pear cactus burrowed deeper into his bloodied feet. Hunger gnawed at his belly. Without weapons, he could only watch as game animals passed tantalizingly close. For 7 grueling days, he survived on nothing but Soriatskal, a bitter root known to local naturalists. Yet his iron will drove him forward until he finally stumbled into the fort, more spirit than flesh. By September 18, having recovered his strength, Colter navigated down the Missouri to the Mandan villages on the Knife River. There he encountered George Drew with Pierre Chouteau's party, who had just completed their mission, escorting Chief Chihac's family home from their historic meeting with President Jefferson. Among the Mandan celebrations, Colter recounted his harrowing escape and the tragic loss of Potts, his voice carrying the weight of survival. Life had more adventures in store for the intrepid explorer. At the Hidatsa village in October, Pierre Menard Manuel, Eliza's partner, worked tirelessly to convince Colter to return to the Yellowstone. Despite his recent brush with death, the call of the wilderness proved irresistible. Soon Colter found himself back at Three Forks, helping establish a new trading post after wintering at Fort Raymond. But the shadow of the Blackfeet loomed large over their enterprise. The tribe's warriors struck relentlessly, making every venture from the fort a dance with death. Tragedy struck while Colter was checking his traps. The Blackfeet killed 2 trappers and captured 3 others. Upon discovering his dead companions, Colter made an unbreakable vow. This time he would truly leave the wilderness behind. True to his word, in July 1810, after 6 remarkable years on the frontier, Colter bid farewell to Fort Raymond. Within 6 weeks, he reached St. Louis, trading buckskin for civilization's comforts. There he met with his old commander, Captain William Clark, sharing crucial details about his Rocky Mountain explorations during the winter of 1806-1807. His first-hand knowledge would prove invaluable, for Clark's 1814 map published alongside the journals of the Lewis and Clark expedition. A new chapter began as Colter married Sarah, known affectionately as Sally.